So I'm very excited to introduce Tim Bettridge, who will be telling us about voice tech for libraries and people. The founder of Voice Tech Global and its Civic Lab leader, Tim specializes in taking deep dives into challenging domains in order to find human-centered solutions to complex problems. So Tim, I'll hand it over to you. Thank you.
Cool, thanks so much. I will share screen now. I think everybody can see, right? Here we go. Okay, let's get into it. So voice tech for libraries and people, because libraries don't really need voice technology. They are just buildings. Okay, so an introduction just to let you know where I'm coming from and representing. So Voice Tech Global and Civic Lab. Voice Tech Global is a professional organization that I founded with two of my partners, Paulina Cherkashina and Guy Tonye. 4 years ago, we were working together on some Alexa projects and some kind of telecom chatbots and stuff like that. And we realized there wasn't a community organization in Toronto specifically for conversational AI. So we started as a meetup group initially. We did a lot of, like, I think over 50 or 60 in-person workshops over that time, usually a couple a month, but also organized some larger events, and ended up building a community of over 2,500 practitioners, and we're not sponsored, or we don't have investors, so we're entirely by practitioners and for practitioners. And from that, we started doing a series of workshops, which we called community-led product development. It was a series of 12 workshops. It was a little bit tough because there's a loss in continuity week to week as people kind of come in and out. And I think you guys are aware of some of the challenges as well when there's continuity broken on a team. And so the Civic Lab kind of came out of that. And it was because there was a group that was definitely interested in getting hands-on experience. And we're all interested in civic technology and enthusiastic about building voice-first experiences in collaboration with public institutions and nonprofits. And so some of the work that we've done over the last couple of years is Project Libre, which I'll talk about tonight, library projects, recycling and kind of waste education, COVID assessments, which I'll touch on briefly at the end, and citizen science, which is something that I'm very interested in, and some of our members are as well. So this is a glamour shot of when we used to be able to work in person at the reference library. We're fully remote now. But I'll get into maybe first talking about conversational AI, and then I'll jump into Project Libre. So just a really brief introduction, a 101 on conversational AI. There's a lot of different definitions for it. The way we define it is an evolving suite of technologies that enable natural and intuitive conversational exchanges between humans and computers. A few points in this definition is it's not one technology, it's an evolving suite of technologies, and it's actually really rapidly changing. So, you know, for me, it's understanding the building blocks of these technologies that helps me get creative with them and find solutions within them. So keeping up with it is sometimes tough. But at its core, it's creating that natural and intuitive conversational exchange, which actually is a really big part of why conversational AI is an excellent technology to build inclusive and equitable products, because they are natural and intuitive interfaces. The barrier to entry and the friction is very low. It kind of hit the mainstream first with mobile devices, and it's not just you know, Siri and Google Assistant. It's chatbots as well, which probably it went mainstream before natural language understanding got an ASR, automatic speech recognition, got good enough to allow us to talk with machines relatively well. There's still a lot of room for improvement there, but chatbots kind of broke out first. We've seen there has been a bit of a lull as the buzz was all around voice interfaces, conversational user interfaces. I think chatbots have made a big return over the last year, as there's been a real need for customer service and scaling and different services to be offered and automated. So chatbots are definitely a big part of this. Also then smart speakers and displays. So this technology became ambient when we started having edge computing or on-device machine learning allowed for wake word invoked assistance. And this is really, I think, a big milestone in the CUI paradigm, because suddenly it's now kind of like Wi-Fi, where it's being embedded in everything, and you're creating this kind of mesh of access across different devices. So smart speakers were the first here, and suddenly the friction and the barrier went way down to engaging with these interfaces. And personally, I have I was drawn to it a lot when I first got my Google Home, because I noticed that I was able to use it to manage my life a lot. I have like a pretty significant ADHD diagnosis that makes it difficult for me to use a day planner. Like, no, I would never write something down like that, but I can input it with very little friction with a smart speaker, and I can set reminders for myself, and I can check my calendar. I can get a morning update, and right away I saw this application for me, and I put one in every room of my house and started designing, and now design sometimes applications just to help me personally, but also got really excited by the technology and was working as a product designer, and now specialize in conversational interfaces, but also kind of places where they intersect with other technologies. So first in phones, then in smart speakers and displays. But it's becoming really ubiquitous and ambient everywhere. So speakers, appliances, Ecobee has the thermostat with Alexa embedded in it, smart televisions. I got to make sure I mute everything here so that they don't answer me. Smart TVs, the new Google TV, the Apple TV, they all have assistants baked into them to help you find the show you want to watch. Also on the go, so smartwatches, hearables, which is this new category. Wearables are worn against the skin. Often they have a screen, or not always necessarily, maybe kind of a brooch format, but hearables are kind of advanced wireless headphones that also often have kind of incorporated heart rate sensors or magnometers. And we're starting to see advancements in things like spatial audio, which can kind of augment the space around you with almost like an audio-based augmented reality. And now in the car as well. So with CarPlay and with Android Auto, the car was really one place where voice interfaces first showed up in the early 90s, but now we're seeing kind of the major technology players and companies like Nuance, which was just purchased by Microsoft, bringing more advanced assistance into the car space. So it's spreading everywhere. Access to a voice assistant, if you have a few devices in your home, is hands-free and ambient. And if you're on the go, you can bring that with you with AirPods or hearable Pixel Buds. And if you're in the car, it's there as well. And on the telephone, and I will talk about that in a moment as well. And so one thing I wanted to talk about, because it's something that we talk about in our curriculum at Voice Tech Global is one of conversational AI's superpowers is that it's great for inclusive and equitable design. So I know I'm kind of preaching to the choir here, but for anybody who isn't aware of these distinctions, universal design came along and it was, how can we make a better curb and how can we make our built environment more accessible to people? And the goal was to make it accessible to all people, regardless of age, disability, or other factors. And inclusive design built on that, but it was also with this recognition that it may be impossible to design a one-size-fits-all solution for everybody, but let's extend the core offerings to as many people as is reasonable possible. And it kind of targeted the 80% of the pyramid and said, okay, the top percent will be specialist products. And this can become technologies like screen reader technologies. Now, I really think that the opportunity in conversational AI is that we can extend this and include everybody, that the target for conversation design should be everybody. And there's some really exciting technologies that are happening right now, and I'll just show a few of them, but Project Euphonia is very interesting. It's a project that Google Research is running, and its aim is to create better speech models for speech recognition by collecting people with all kinds of different atypical speech. So they have this research platform where they're collecting, kind of annotating and working with a volunteer community to make speech models that will work for everybody so that we can get better speech recognition for people who may have atypical speech. And so here you can see, a future where we may have an interface, we may have a technology and a channel in conversational interfaces where you're building a product, but if we can get the speech recognition and make the product work better and also design it in a way that it works for everyone, we can have products that work for everybody and not necessarily a subsection of that. I saw a headline that and article that I read recently that was fascinating was around BCI, brain-computer interfaces, and how the kind of transcription of letters and language is almost approaching kind of what you would do if you were texting somebody, the typing speed of texting. So this is advancing very quickly. I remember when that they had like a 60% accuracy and it was a very slow word count. And this is really important for people who have locked-in syndrome. So they may be completely paralyzed and not able to communicate, but they're conscious. There's a wonderful movie called, I think it's called The Butterfly and the Diving Bell, Papillon. I forget the French name for it, but it's about the editor of Elle magazine who had a massive stroke later in his life and woke up in a hospital completely locked in, but fully conscious and present. And he ended up writing a book by blinking to work letter by letter. You think about how difficult that would be to be having to communicate at such a slow speed. And it's also an excellent movie if you want to understand what that experience would be like, because there's a lot of kind of first person perspective and you really feel what that experience would be like. So, I think if you're familiar with the inclusive design spectrum from Microsoft, what we want to promote is to aim to provide an equivalent experience to all of your target users, and think about how you can do that. And it's not just going to benefit that 20%, but there's all types of cases where people are maybe not permanently disabled, but they may be situationally disabled or temporarily disabled. So somebody may have laryngitis and so they can't speak, so you should have a text channel on your product, or they're hungover from a weekend, so their cognition is messed up and they're not able to fully work through your product. You have to make sure your product is speaking in a coherent and clear manner. Or maybe a parent who's holding a child, in that moment has a mobility constraint that they can't walk over to your device and tap and touch on it. So there are all kinds of moments where by thinking about the spectrum, this inclusive design spectrum, which is a great tool for Microsoft, that you can design and reach everybody, and people who are not only permanently disabled, but people who may be situationally or temporarily as well. And it's inclusive and equitable design too. And we have started looking at these other areas where you can make a big impact for a lot of people, and where conversational interfaces can be intuitive for people who might not be tech savvy. And so if they are not what we call digital natives, they didn't grow up with technology. Sometimes, I remember teaching my grandmother how to use our home computer, and the mouse was really difficult for her to master, and she just learned kind of how to do email. But voice interfaces are unlocking digital access to a lot of people who are not comfortable using computers, because language is an interface that we learn from our parents at a young age and is really natural and intuitive to us, and well-designed conversational products can be as intuitive. So helping people communicate and gain access to information in the world is a big one. Making expensive services financially accessible to everybody. So this is an interesting one, but the ability to scale services, legal services or mental health services. There's a chatbot called Wobot that's great, that is making real impact in thousands and thousands of people's lives, and facilitating cognitive behavioral therapy. And then they're really, everybody should have a therapist. Everybody should have access to mental health care, but it's not something that's going to scale to meet the need anytime soon. And so, it's not to say that this is better than humans doing this service. It's augmenting what services are available right now, and it's something that is making really positive impact. So healthcare is another example. In a year when we saw telehealth lines just crushed by anxious people, and what they call the worried well, people who are maybe experiencing allergies, but they wanted to know if they should get a COVID test. And I remember my mom was worried at the beginning of the pandemic because she was coming back from a trip right before they canceled things, and her and her husband were both sick, that she waited on hold for 4.5 hours with Telehealth Ontario and hung up, and they called her back 2 days later to see if she needed help. But these services really scaled, and there was a lot of uptick in adoption of assessment and telehealth services that were kind of being funneled and triaged by chatbots and automation. And the last one here is accessible across a wide range of channels. So it's not just for people who have access to smart speakers and certain technologies. So you can now integrate with Dialogflow or other agent development platforms, you can Rasa or Dialogflow or other development platforms with telephony and a 1-800 number. So if you think about the ability to have your chatbot be available on a payphone, that's something that's possible now. So the access thing is really interesting, because for somebody who maybe doesn't have a smart speaker or a smartphone, if you can allow them to dial in and speak to your assistant, that opens it wide for how many people can access that. Yeah, and on some of these notes, like I just was reading about chatbot being used to give legal aid and advice in a wide range of different languages to Syrian refugees. So, you know, it's scaling the service of legal aid, but it's also making it accessible. And that's one other point is across a wide range of languages. So in a city like Toronto, which is one of the most multicultural cities in the world, UNESCO, I think, says we're the most diverse city in the world. It's a compelling opportunity to scale services, but also make them available in different languages. And language and translation is something that's also being driven at the forefront of this technology, even rare languages. So it's been a kind of a slow rise, but now Google Assistant is available in 44 different languages. And translation technologies are getting very good, very accurate, and actually expanding to languages that are rare languages. They've figured out ways to allow these models to kind of teach each other and learn languages that otherwise would be very difficult to build translation models for, because there isn't a lot of annotated data or spoken data. So the promise there is, you could eventually bring this information technology to a group of people where maybe 5,000 people speak that language, and they don't, nothing is made or localized for them. If we have solid language technologies and improved speech recognition technologies, then we can localize and translate conversational AI products into all these different languages. Okay, so that's just an intro to conversational AI and why I'm passionate about it, but I'll go into Project Libre to talk about libraries. So it's an ongoing engagement with TPL in pursuit of developing voice products that would support and be useful for library users in Toronto and around the world. We love TPL. We actually, the organizers of Voice Tech Global, we used to meet every Saturday there, and as did Civic Lab. We had a room in the basement, the spooky basement of the reference library. We started this project with kind of the divergent primary research and a lot of generative research with 16 different library users who reached out to participate. And we did a lot of long one-on-one talks with them, and then found these opportunity areas. We heard things like, I used the library, especially in school, for the environment. People really liked the environment and I think are missing it. I find that popular nonfiction is just never available when you want it. We heard people wanted the latest popular book, but it wasn't ever there. And it would be nice to have an area on the website that notices my interests. Somebody was saying, and we got a lot of these quotes, actually, I think over 600 of them in a database that we tagged. These are, you can kind of squint and see them, but we synthesized these into customer profiles where we were really trying to understand different segments, and also understand what their core jobs to be done are, what their pains and frustrations were, and what their aspirations or gains were. And then we ideated, and going into ideation, like as one of the tenets of equitable design, we really want to make sure that these products aren't developed by like a few people in Silicon Valley, and instead they're informed by a diversity of different opinions and perspectives. And a part of that, we take some strategies like education. So we're doing a lot of workshops even still, but also public co-creation sessions or symposiums and design charrettes. Collaborating with TPL, we had our first idea jam, and that was I love this name. It's something that that TPL has done in the past, and I was like, yeah, I love it. Idea jam. We got to come up with ideas. We got to jam together. So we did this in January of 2020, and it was the last in-person event. It was in late January that we ever did. And it was great because we didn't think anybody would come. It was the biggest snowstorm of the year. They shut down the TTC that day. But we ended up getting, over 40 people attend. It was 8 hours long. We were kind of snowed in, and we worked together. These are just some action shots of everybody coming together. And there's one example of why this is so effective and important is when we did this specific ideation activity, we didn't have as one of our users street engaged people. We had senior citizens, we had students, we had different types of users. And somebody told us, and she was a woman who confided in me that she didn't sign up for this, but she just walked in because she saw what we were doing and was interested in it, and that she doesn't use a computer, so she wouldn't have found out about this otherwise, but that she notices that there were a lot of people using the library who were homeless. And I said, yes, absolutely. And I know actually there are social workers who work at the library to provide services for these different members of the library. And so we added it in that moment, and we were able to ideate with those users in mind as well. From this, the participants pitched their great ideas, and we ended up taking those ideas, like hundreds of ideas, and evaluating those first ideas. So this is the team going through. We kind of shipped all the sticky notes in a little box and brought them back and went through everything. And we evaluated those to kind of our top themes that we were seeing. And we looked at them for what kind of effort they'd take to build, what the impact would be, if it was kind of appropriate for a conversational product. And we came out with 4 things, and we were like, okay, these are the 4. Let's talk to TPL and find out what's interesting to them. Then the COVID happened. It was really sad because it was our last day when we did this evaluation. You can actually look how proud we are. They were telling us we're never going to come back here again. So we said, let's take a group photo. We had just gone through this evaluation process for a couple of weeks. We realized that we wouldn't be here. And we actually looked back at our concepts that we had evaluated, and we realized there was one that we had that was missing, that we didn't elevate, but we decided in light of the pandemic that would have more impact on the library users' changing needs. And that was just dealing with people's isolation that they'd be facing during the lockdown, because we had heard that people liked the ambience of the library and the kind of convivial nature of it. And we just understood people might be isolated at home and having to do that for a long time. So we asked ourselves, how might we help people feeling isolated and working from home feel a sense of connection with others in a familiar space? And that's where Third Space came out. And this is a product now on the Google Assistant and Actions on Google. You can ask a Google Home to talk to Third Space, and you'll hear one of our members, George Wu, who has a wonderful radio voice, and he says this on entrance.
Welcome to Third Space, where we can take you into the soundscapes of the places between places where people gather and connect. You can put these soundscapes on in the background, whether your goal is to work, focus, or simply to relax.
Yeah, we actually built this product first with voice synthesis, which is pretty standard. But when we did some user testing, we found that people wanted to feel some warmth and they were feeling isolated at home. So we decided to try pre-recorded speech. And George took all of our dialogue and produced some really clean, nice sounding audio. And we do variable dialogue so that it changes when you engage again. So it doesn't feel quite as robotic, but I use Third Space all the time, and it gives you the soundscapes of either a library, an office, or a coffee shop. And it plays for an hour and then asks you if you want to continue. I mean, it's a simple action. We went with it because it was low effort. We could do it quickly. And that it would have a big impact. We still took our other concepts, we matured them to these three concepts, and I won't go deep into them, can provide the deck afterwards, but reading consultant, so giving book recommendations, TPL info desk, providing information about libraries and services in a range of different languages, events advisor, an AI assistant that recommends library events, and talking with our stakeholders at TPL. This is the one that they really liked and wanted us to pursue. So we came out with Design Jam a year later. And this was an event that was fully remote. It was a 2-hour hands-on event. Vivian, who's on the call, hosted it with me. And we designed a workshop that would be accessible to anybody remotely. We had to actually work within constraints of different these different tools, which are the ones that TPL uses, which meant we couldn't use breakout rooms. So we ended up redesigning some activities, making it Google Slides based, and went through in this 2 hours introduction to user research and the ideation activity, concept development, where we used Jitsi and had them break out in a kind of informal way, and then group share outs. And I'm not going to go through all the concepts, but I just wanted to show you guys the volume of ideas that came out through this, and they were really fantastic. And we've been developing since with these. And then the concept development and the presentations, and this is within a 2-hour period, the ideation and then the concept development. This is just one example of a product that they called Virtually in Person, which kind of gives you the ability to ask questions to the smart speaker while you're at an event on your computer, and that gets transcribed and sent. And then you can do some exchanges within that. And so they thought about what the personality of their agent would be like, and gave us a little demo where they read through this dialogue of how this would work. And each of our groups did that, but talk to VIP. Hi there, welcome to VIP. We always encourage a welcoming environment and are glad you're here today. Are you ready to attend today's event? Yes, wonderful. You're currently attending this lecture titled, feel free to ask me any questions during the course of this event. I'll try my best to help. So you could ask questions about the event, but you can also, and then this agent facilitates kind of like a dispatcher of the questions. And they did mention that you could talk to friends and feel co-present with them there. Okay, so I'm just looking at the time, and I know I've gone well over additional products that we've done, and there are some links attached. COVID Check was one that we worked on. We ended up building the kind of the MVP of this minimal viable product and shared it with Service Ontario. That was focused on how we could get rid of the telehealth lines by doing diagnostic assessments for COVID. Beekeeper, it's on paper project that has some, there's been research on and off over time, but is a voice agent that educates its users about the importance of bees and other pollinators and recruits them as citizen scientists to help document and record sightings and helps contribute to population models. This almost turned into a cicada keeper with the brood coming in, but it's I think we're going to keep it as a pollinator beekeeper. And then this is one that we just launched our first version of it, but it's Toronto Waste Genius, and you can access it on Alexa speakers right now. It's still in development,
Speakers
but
include several.
I can give you a very quick demo.
Range speakers.
Alexa, open Toronto Waste Genius.
Hey there, nice to see you again. What confusing trash item can I help you with today?
Computer.
Computer-related hardware. Let's take a look. If you live in a multi-residential building, ask your superintendent or property manager where the collection area is for your building and take electronic waste to your building's designated drop-off area. If you live in a house, you may set computer-related hardware at the curbside on one of the scheduled garbage collection days. Place such items for pickup half a meter away from the garbage bin. Large items can be put on the ground. Small items should be put in an open cardboard box or a clear plastic bag. Is there anything else you're looking to dispose of today?
Uber Eats packaging.
Is your takeout container made out of plastic, paper, or styrofoam?
Styrofoam.
Is the styrofoam black colored?
No.
All right then. Non-black styrofoam food containers are recyclable and can go in your
Okay.
bin.
So yeah, it's mostly a one shot. What we did do was identify that there were some products that they're not really in the Waste Wizard database. They're not really made to be conversational. There's too much information. And takeout containers was one that we thought, hey, people are eating way more takeout than they ever did before because of COVID. And it's confusing because there are actually 6 different ways to dispose of it based on if it's paper, plastic, or styrofoam, if it's black or white, or if it's compostable plastic. And so it was too much to convey at once. So instead we have this decision tree kind of flow. So that's Toronto Waste Genius. And we're now making some really interesting progress on the event spot since the design jam. So we've got the JSON of the live events being imported into our database, and we're able to access it conversationally, but we are heading kind of fully into design mode now with that. And that's the kind of work we're doing, and that's Project Libre. So I think that's the end of my presentation. Thanks. If you'd also like to contribute to any of these projects, or if you have any questions, you can always get in touch with me. I'm trying to be on Twitter, but I'm not that much on Twitter. I'm much more on LinkedIn. And you can also get me at tbettridge@voicetechglobal.com.